Britney Coleman. How are you?
Hello, I'm good. How are you doing?
We're doing great. Tim and I are ecstatic to have you here with us.
Yes, we are.
Oh my gosh, I'm
Thank
so
you
happy to
so
be
much.
here. Thank you for asking me.
Of course.
Absolutely. And we're releasing your video along with Andrew Lippa's video and what we're calling Andrew Lippa Week here at
Yay!
SFGMC TV. So it's fabulous.
Yes.
Super excited.
Bravo.
And we're so excited to hear about how you're sheltering in place, how you're moving through, this pandemic and what it's doing to really our arts community, but also get a peek behind a new show you might be doing called Company. I don't know.
Maybe. Maybe you've heard of it. I don't know.
Has it dawned on you that you only do plays that have one word? You went from Unbreakable, which you all can see on SFGMC TV, to Tootsie, to Company.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
I don't know how.
That's so true. That's so funny. Let's see. We started with Sunset Boulevard, so that's two. That's it for that one. And then after that was Beautiful. And then if you include the full title, it's Beautiful, the Carole King musical.
Yeah.
But most people just call it Beautiful. So you're right. It mostly has been one word.
Wow.
And I think, and words that describe you: Unbreakable, Beautiful.
Oh.
I mean, you're like a Tootsie.
Company.
Where's my little flag that he waves? Oh gosh.
I love
Yeah,
that.
and Company.
At
And
any
Company,
point
yep.
now, it'll just be Britney. No last name, Britney. So
fingers crossed. Put that out in the universe. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So, Britney, how are you doing? How are you doing during this time?
I'm good. I'm good. I am sheltering in place in New York City. And I live up in Washington Heights, and we are a community neighborhood. I mean, all of New York City thrives in their communities, but Washington Heights in particular, I've been here maybe 2 years, and everybody knows everybody else. All the people in my building know what's going on. My neighbor has lived here his entire life. He's 30. And it's really interesting to hear it so quiet now. I live across the street from an elementary school, and, there's always hustle and bustle, children screaming, laughing, playing their parents, everything. And it is dead silent except for sirens, which reminds us of what's happening. Right. And then every night at 7:00, people open up their windows, they lean out, they start screaming, they start applauding. One of my neighbors bangs on her pots and pans. It's hysterical, but so moving. It is absolutely incredible to be a part of our block that's doing that, applauding all of our healthcare workers and our service care workers, all of our essential working folks, everybody who's running our grocery stores. They're all working, they're all showing up every day to keep everything running. It's just incredible. It's so cool to be a part of that.
It's incredible. When in wartime, people go off to war. It's just so different, and they're going down the street to fight this war, and it's an incredible time and a great time for music, and that's why we're doing these interviews. Is for rays of sunshine, like your 7 p.m. hanging out the window. This is your hanging out the window for 30 minutes with Chris and Tim. I will say, Britney, seriously, your smile is enough to brighten any day. Oh my God!
Thanks. It's just so good to see you guys. Really.
Thank you. Come back to San Francisco very soon.
Oh my gosh! In a heartbeat. Yep. Anytime you say the word and I will drop everything and run. I miss it, and I hope you guys are doing well.
When you've sung with us 5 times, then you get your own week. Then it'll be Britney Coleman week. So don't want you to feel bad that Andrew is getting a week.
Oh, all good. Good. Happy to support.
Andrew Lippa is the one who found you for us and put us together. And tell me what you know about that.
Andrew, Actually, I was in the New York Times. I was doing a show at City Center Encores called Hey, Look Me Over. It was a celebration of their 75th anniversary. And Carolee Carmelo and I opened the show together doing some songs from Wildcat. And we were part of the picture. We were, you know, it was us in the New York Times. It was so cool. I can't believe I get to say that. But anyway, Andrew read it, saw it, looked me up and saw that I went to U of M, University of Michigan.
Right.
He is also an alumni.
Yes,
And he reached out immediately. He said, hey, I have a project coming up and I think you'd be fantastic. I've done some online sleuthing after I saw your article in the Times, and go Blue. And that's all I needed to hear. And I was already on board. I hadn't heard any of the music, actually. It was just a really brief email exchange because, you know, I'm not going to tell Andrew no. How dare I? Absolutely not.
Yeah, nobody really tells Andrew no.
And here's a quick plug. On SFGMC TV is the opening of Unbreakable with Britney Coleman. It's also on her website, and it's extraordinary. So
thank you.
That needed to be said.
Thank you. I was so happy with that video.
Putting the cast together, putting the cast together for Unbreakable, and Andrew had written it for four soloists: a soprano, a mezzo soprano, a tenor, and a bass. Or really, that's not true. A tenor and a tenor, because he's a Broadway composer. He's a Broadway composer, and they ignore basses. They don't know that they exist. So
no, poor things.
Soprano, alto, tenor, tenor. And that's the way he scored the big piece, Unbreakable. And so we first got Lisa Vroman to be the soprano, who is ridiculous,
unreal.
And then we chose a young singer from San Francisco to be the other tenor, and then Andrew sang a role of the happy homosexual.
Yes, he did.
He's the happy homosexual, and so he'd written a piece about Sylvia Rivera, and that was the part that we just didn't know. It's a complicated. She was complicated, and so he actually sent me a YouTube probably the very day he'd been sleuthing, as you said, like, who is this Britney Coleman, and found a YouTube and sent it to me and said, what do you think? And I'm like, oh my gosh, ask her. And so that's how that happened. Just behind the scenes, and he was convinced. And then he met you in New York. I mean, you all met.
Yeah, we did. We got together, and that's the first time he played some of the stuff for me. I mean, it was a no-brainer. It was an absolute no-brainer. It was such a glorious piece as a whole. And then the two that I sang, Unbreakable and the Sylvia Rivera stuff, my gosh, I mean, they couldn't have been more polar opposite stylistically.
Right.
And just to be trusted with that material was so flattering. I was so moved.
So I do want to ask you about Sylvia, and how you stepped into her shoes so beautifully. But are you still singing Sylvia? Do you still sing her every once in a while?
Every now and then, the phrase goes, "A Rocky Horror Picture Show enthusiast," comes into my head just on repeat. I don't know why.
Well, my thought was you should put that in your audition rep, although you may never have to audition again now that you're famous. But
oh gosh,
yeah, you Sylvia at an audition and blow people's minds, because it's
thank you. Yeah. Oh, it's funny. I think about a cut of it, and it wouldn't stand out of context, because it's a lot of lists of things that you don't hear in public very often.
Correct.
So,
well, we're releasing it on SFGMC TV this week. This week, Infinite Week. So, everyone will be able to see you as Sylvia.
Oh, fantastic! Yeah. Oh, that's news to me. I didn't know. Oh, good. I'm glad, because, man, that song. Oh, it's so powerful. I can't get over how much I think that song means to the community in particular. And it's about exploring, like, how many names can you go by? How many things can people call you in order for it to make sense for them? When really all that matters is that it makes sense to you and what your journey is. Right. And oh, yay, I'm so glad. I'm so glad that people begin to.
So when Andrew came to you and said, I want you to play this amazing icon in our history, tell me how you step into her shoes.
Well, I definitely had to do some research first because I didn't know who she was. Sure. And it was really easy to find the research on her because she was one of the pioneers of just the movement, for putting the trans community in the spotlight and saying, hey, we're here. People need to listen to us. And all of the, the violence back then, just to hear this voice come out of the masses and lead. So yeah, I did my research. And with every character that I play, of course, I try to see the parallels and how I can connect in my story and in my world and make it real and kind of bridge the gap for me as well. And just to be part of a marginalized community in a way. The thing that I could really grasp onto is I'm mixed. My dad is Black and my mom is white. And I didn't have any role models growing up. I really didn't. They were few and far between. So I didn't really have kind of a place in the world that I fit, that made sense to me. And just trying to come to terms with who I am and what I stand for, what I'm about. Like that's what Sylvia Rivera was about too. Just loud, proud, out there, unapologetic, just incredible. So yeah, I immediately connected with her.
Yeah, and she was not an activist just for herself. She was an activist for a broad range of peoples. And that's one of the things that makes her hard to pin down, but also so remarkable because she would take up the cause for people that were other. And as you said, was loud and proud, and you did her justice.
Thank you. Thank you. That means a lot.
Oh my goodness.
When Brittany, Tim and I talk about this a lot in the chorus. We have two twins. Let's call them twins. And one of them, is our artistic twin, and the other is our activist twin, right? I mean, it's music and it's mission. And I'm curious, following up on what you just said, at what point in your life did your music and your mission sort of become one? Like, when did you feel like that was the moment when you're like, my art is just more than performing and entertaining. It's my life's work. It's the mission to change people's hearts and minds and to have my voice heard.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's an excellent question. Like I said, I didn't have any role models really that I could look up to. Like nowadays, Tracee Ellis Ross is one of the most prominent mixed women, I think. And I love, what she stands for. And when I first started doing musicals, I was really young. I was in 3rd grade. I got cast as Mary, the little girl in Secret Garden. And that was my introduction to the business, to the world of musicals. And
the story is that that everyone in the school had to audition.
Yes.
And you auditioned thinking you might get in the chorus. And
boom. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. My teacher.
Brittany? What were you thinking?
I know.
You're not a chorus girl.
Well, I was so shy. Like I'm very much an introvert, and I didn't even know I had a voice. I didn't know I had a voice. I didn't know at the time, like, the power of using your voice, not only just singing, but, and speaking out in general. And my choir teacher basically pulled me aside and he was like, you're going to be our star. Like, this is happening. You don't have a choice. And here you go. Here's the role. Here's the part. And, Everybody who auditioned was in it, you know, in some way, in the chorus in the back, and everybody was so supportive. Everybody had my back, and oh gosh, I'll never forget it. It was overwhelming to the fullest. And since then, in doing my research and realizing, oh yeah, Secret Garden, when you look at fully produced productions of this show, that's not a very diverse cast. It's not what it's about. And most of the shows that I did after that, we did a production of West Side Story, and I got to play Anita. That was like right after Secret Garden, and I was feeling, you know, all saucy and stuff. I was like, oh, okay, this is a character that like knows how to say something. Okay, great. Put a little stank on it. But since then, I've always kind of like juggled between the really classical stuff and the really, you know, kind of like contemporary pop forward stuff. And I love to lean towards classical. I'll say that just because I was like classically trained. And so one of my role models then was Audra, still is. I adore that woman. She is absolutely incredible. But singing, you know, Julie Jordan in Carousel, like these really, really traditional, very one color, one dimensional type of golden age musicals. And she's the one, you know, just kind of representing minorities across the board and picking up every Tony on the way. So yes, so I started to do a lot more classical musicals, especially now in my professional career. And since then, a lot of girls, younger girls who look like me, have reached out saying, thank you. Just thank you for being you. Thank you for being present. Thank you for doing this material, because you're continuing to open the door for all of these different stories to be told by different people. And that's what got me, is just seeing like the impact that someone has seeing me on stage, singing Camelot, for instance. I've done Guinevere a couple times, and it broadens people's perspectives. And that's kind of my mission. It's just to say, hey, there are some iconic stories, especially when they're not race specific. That's my kind of one rule. That if it's not about race, it's open to everybody. And you know, everyone's story deserves to be told. There's so many different flavors of people out there, and I think everybody should have a shot at telling different stories.
I love that you bring that up, and you talk about it so openly. I, being of a different generation, would watch mixed race actresses or singers completely confused and in a huge dilemma about who to be, because people wanted them to choose. Which are you? And there were those, as you know, that I won't mention, that covered up and pretended to be white, or you're just not, and you're not black enough. And I mean, just constant. It was a really tough thing. So when you said, I don't have any role models, I was scrolling back through the people that I watched and that I knew who were not so open. Like, this is who I am. You know, I have a black dad and a white mom. There you go. And it's so wonderful and refreshing for you to be that role model. It's amazing.
Thanks.
Britney,
let's talk about music. Yes.
What are those things hanging up behind your head?
Well, this is my quarantine project. I hung all of my the instruments that I don't play, or the old instruments that don't stay in tune anymore, because you want to keep the good ones in the cases. Anyway, I am a classically trained violinist. I studied for 10 years. And since then, I've moved on to the mandolin, which is strung the same way, except you play it like a guitar. There's a ukulele there, my guitar, and my little ukulele there. And yeah, I put up these shelves in the quarantine and hung all these things up. And yeah, music, both chorally and instrumentally, has been a huge part of my life. I started in 5th grade with the violin. So
if they ever revive Sweeney Todd, where the actors play the instruments, you're in. You can.
Oh God! I mean, y'all have my number. Anybody out there, call me.
So here's the question. We're going to go back in the annals of your memory and your music history, not history at all. What's the first song you remember singing?
Ooh. Um, wow. That's a good one. Well, my dad is one of 10, all pastors' kids, church family. Everybody played an instrument. Everybody sang. And so therefore I have 24 first cousins on that side, and they all sing. They all have phenomenal voices, and the blending is, I mean, you can't beat a family, right? Yeah. So I remember when I was little, because I'm kind of the runt of that big old group of cousins, the girls pulled me aside, like we did our little girl group thing. But one of the songs was Silver and Gold, I think. Oh gosh, how'd it go? It went silver and gold, silver and gold. Oh, I'd rather have Jesus than silver and gold. And then we do it in a round, and nice. Silver and gold, and like just harmonies upon harmonies. And I think that's my first like vocal memory like that. Yeah.
Were you tiny? Were you obviously the runt, but how old do you think you were?
I must have been like 6, maybe 6 or 7. Yeah, because everybody else is in their teens at that point.
Awesome.
But yeah.
So at what one moment, I mean, people ask me all this because, I've been doing this a long time. What's your favorite song you've ever conducted? And it drives me insane. How would you ever choose that? You can't. I mean, you make each of them your children, and you love them in that moment, and you love them, and they come and go in your life. However, I'm going to ask you a question, not your favorite. But do you remember a time when a piece of music that you were singing, a song you were singing, absolutely touched you so deeply that you realized that music, as I say, is not the end, but it's a means to the end? That all of a sudden these things came together. It wasn't just notes, and it wasn't the cousins doing but when did a piece of music touch you so deeply that you remember it?
Oh, gosh. Probably the song that I sang in Secret Garden. That was The Girl I Mean to Be. And it was just such a cute little ditty. But the lyrics are, I need a place where I can go, where I can whisper what I know, where I can whisper who I like, and where I go to see them. I don't know if that's the right lyric, but something like that. A place where I can go when I am lost, and there I'll find me. And it was such an internal song like that. Oh
my goodness, chill bumps all over.
Yeah,
all over.
It's.
And it was the third grade.
The girl I mean to be. That was 3rd grade. Yeah, and that's when I realized the power of musical theater a little bit, to be able to have a song that's so internal, like rip off the facade and like look really deep, but then also be able to really share that vulnerability with 300 something people in the audience for 3rd grader. I was hooked. I was totally hooked.
Speaking of musical theater, maybe we can peek behind your company curtain for a minute.
Please.
Yeah, tell us about it.
Oh, okay. So I am one of the Bobby understudies in Company. Company is featuring a woman playing Bobby rather than the traditional man, which is, I mean, I saw it in London. Patti LuPone is playing Joanne. She won the Olivier for it. She is phenomenal. So when I went to London and I saw it, it wasn't even on my radar, but after I saw it, I was like, oh yeah, I could see myself in this. Absolutely. Cut to, a year later, and here I am covering Katrina Lenk, who won her Tony for Fans Visit. And it has been a phenomenal experience. Marianne Elliott is our director. She did Curious Incident, and Tonys and Oliviers galore. And anyway, we got 9 previews in before we had to shut down because of the quarantine. So we had 9 performances in front of an audience. We were at the theater every day because we were still doing notes, changing things, snipping things here and there. And we still had like a week and a half before we were supposed to open. So we were in this incredible momentum. There was so much buzz about the show. We were sold out. You could tell people were really excited to be there in the audience. And that was super cool. That was really, really cool to just feel coming back at you on stage. And yeah, we got called into a meeting with our producers, and they told us, hey, here are some things that are being talked about around the business, around New York in general, and we'll keep you updated every step of the way. Then we did the show that night, and then we got the schedule for the next day, and there was no rehearsal scheduled. I had a fitting for all of my Bobby stuff still on the schedule. And I was like, okay, this is interesting. All right, let me go try on some costumes. And then they called us. We had a conference call while I was still at the offsite costume shop to say, hey, we're not having a show tonight or ever until further notice. Come pick up your things. Anything that you might need. We'll only be gone for 4 weeks. We'll be back April 12th. So grab what you need until then, and we'll keep in touch. So I left, like, took off my Bobby costumes, put my street clothes on, went straight to the theater and straight home. And since then, we have been rehearsing on Zoom once a week.
Awesome.
All of us. There's like 25 of us on the Zoom call.
Oh man, that's awesome. How are you making that work? Because Tim tried last night with 160 singers. It didn't go so well. So maybe you can point us in a different direction.
I tried.
I mean, it's impossible. There's no way to do it musically.
No.
there's no way with the lag, with people's internet connections. Some of us are in different time zones. We tried though.
It's nice. We tried too. We had 165 guys on the call last night, and I said, okay, now, and they were all muted. And I said, now I'm going to unmute you all, and unmute. And then they started this, to which someone said, oh, this is just like rehearsal. And I'm like, people, stop. And so we started singing, and I'm doing this, I'm doing this, and it's lag stuff. And I'm like, stop. Can you see this? And they're like, yes. And then we realized that Zoom picks up the loud people, the loudest voices it will pick up. Oh my gosh, but we've recorded it. Yeah, it's.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh, is it up? Can I see that?
No, you may not.
No. Oh, actually, it is recorded, but no one will ever see it.
It was that bad. I can't believe you all tried it, but that's great. I mean, what can you do?
I mean, it sounded just like a whole, mishigas of Bobbies, because it starts with like Bobby, ba 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 ba, and then everybody layers on. Yeah. And if I had to sum it up, it sounded like ba 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 ba,
Right.
And then everybody would just start cracking up because nobody was muted either, and then
exactly what happened to us. They would not stop laughing. And so that's the end of that for sure. Not doing that anymore.
What we basically ended up doing was reading through the script. And then if someone wanted to speak their songs, their solos or whatnot, like our guy who sings Not Getting Married Today rapped his entire song, which was fantastic. Yeah. And we all went like this in the back.
Nice.
But then the second time around we did it, we had recordings from our stage management from the show. So we did the scene, then they did the screen share thing, where they could watch the show and we could all hear the music in real time, and we, muted and sang along, and then cut back to the scenes. And that lasted for 2 weeks.
This is an ignorant question on my part, but are you signed on to do company for a year, or how does that work?
We are all on year-long riders for this. And as far as how the union is going to determine this chunk of time that we're off, whether this counts as the year or we will pick back up and extend the contract. We don't know.
Yeah.
We don't quite know, because other, people have engagements, and some people are scheduled for the next 3 years.
Yeah.
With other things. So we have no idea.
Yeah. Well, we don't.
But yeah, it's a year-long situation. So
which is great.
Each show is different, but yeah.
We thank you so much for being with us today. It's been so much fun, and we look forward to when you come back and sing with us. Can't wait.
Oh my gosh. Anytime. Anytime.
Can't wait. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Really. Thank you for having me. Made my day.
Thank you, Britney. It's always wonderful to see you. It's always wonderful to see you. And as Tim said earlier, your smile just lights up the screen. So thank you. I think it's been a source of inspiration, and thank you for the work that you put forward. Thank you for being an incredible ally to our community.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. I gotcha. I'm right there with you.
Thank you.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you. It means so much. So much.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Oh, I can't wait to see everything. And
yeah. I'll get you.
Gosh. I can't believe you're putting out Sylvia.
Yay!
And it's bleeped? You bleeped it?
I didn't bleep anything. We don't bleep here.
No.
Good. Okay.
We do not bleep here. And you had that red pantsuit on, and that glare. It was fabulous.
Oh my God, I forgot. And all that choreo that we had.
Oh yeah, hips were like gyrating hips everywhere. I loved it.
Yes. I love it. Good.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Much love.
Love. Thank you guys.
Thank you, dear.
I'll talk to you soon. Okay.
Yes. Bye, dear.
Bye.